clearly online harassment of women is a very, very important issue, and it can lead to very dire consequences if not handled properly. So we certainly support CPJ and IWMF and other organizations, including our own, to try to fight these attacks and let women know that they're not alone in the newsroom and that there are good policies that can be put in place to help protect them.
Making journalists like me and those who come after me aware of the risks is very important so that we can better prepare mentally, if nothing else, for the kind of barrage that we become the subject of when we do where we broach controversial topics. So it's important that organisations make their staff aware of what can happen and then equip them well by teaching them the kinds of resilience skills that we aren't always taught. So I think resisting the urge to engage with people who are abusive. I take a zero tolerance view and I block people immediately who are abusive. I don't mind criticism and debate. It's an important part of journalism and we should all be fearless in debating our critics, but only when they engage in a polite and respectful manner. When people are not polite and respectful, I block them and I encourage other people to do the same and to be strong. And the best defence against abuse is to be confident about your work. If you are impartial and accurate and have a very fierce commitment to the truth, then you have nothing to fear but fear itself.
So the actions that media can take to defend their female journalists when they are harassed are few, but they still exist nonetheless. One is to defend these women publicly in their jobs, and when they're threatened, to call the police if there's threat of unacceptable violence. The other is to encourage civilized debate among readers in online comments, because we find that when we journalists respond to commenters, that tends to lead to a more civilized debate.
We report all threats to the police, no matter how small, no matter how big. We then check if the police think this is a serious threat. We provide alarms at home for the threatened reporter and her family. If need to be, we can install them in a hotel for the first week so they won't be home. Where do you think they are the most vulnerable at the first time? Well, police can investigate and see if they can find the one sending the email or posting the thing online. And if the reporter is traumatized by this, we have people that can help them, talk to them, and for as long time as needed for them to come back.
How can we respond to this online abuse that women journalists in particular receive? Common strategies include, for some people, just trying to ignore it, deleting abusive comments, blocking keywords that regularly appear in this sort of abusive comment, and blocking repeat abusers, the people themselves that are doing this. In my view, it is time for workplaces to be working with their staff to better support women journalists and indeed journalists generally when they do find themselves being targeted, particularly with a high volume of online abuse. So what I would like to see is workplaces working with their staff to develop clear policies for when and how the organisation will take action to help respond to the abuse. I'd like to see some support, some resources being put towards assisting journalists who are receiving online abuse to help them to block and delete abusive comments and to block abusive users so that they're not having to deal with that burden of responding to that avalanche of abuse completely on their own. I'd also like to see the workplace support women to document evidence of the abuse where that might be appropriate so that they can take legal action. Then I'd like to see workplaces really supporting women journalists in taking that further action rather than just dismissing the abuse or telling them, as I think is so often the case, that they should just learn to ignore it and that it's part of the job.